Hey folks, this is Totally and welcome to some more game dev. Coming back here again with a continuation of where we left off. And to be honest, I don't quite remember where that is. I've been sick the last 2 weeks with, I think, just a simple cold, but it's kept me from streaming the last 2 Sundays, which we normally do our 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. PST and then from 6 to 8, but haven't been able to do that. And before that, we were off for a couple of weeks working on the project, doing a 4-week sprint trying to get to a demo, which we did not get to. And so I'm trying to remember, like, what do we have left? That's like the big question. I have many tasks that we just didn't end up getting to because a lot of the 4 weeks we had off, we just spent building out content and cutscenes and resolving some issues. But like most of these tasks that I built out for myself when we started the vacation just didn't end up happening. And so I've been honestly a little too sick to try and figure out like what's going on, and so today is going to be a little bit of just like finding our footing. Now, the main thing that a lot of this has to do with, all of these tasks really, even like treasure chest placement, all really have to do with this idea of like balancing and figuring out like how much damage should the player be doing, how quickly should they be gaining stats, how and what impact does that have on the ability to kill enemies, how quickly and how powerful the player feels. I have been playing with some damage numbers. I guess we could take a look at that. Let me just figure out what save file. I was working on this, I guess, what was that, yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I was working on some save files. I think we can load this one up as an example. But in terms of damage numbers, if we take a look at this sheet, in the past we've looked at some of our damage formulas in a much broader sense. Let's take a look at this one. So this is the one that I've shown on stream in the past, which allows me to very easily be able to say, okay, if the enemy has 6 defense and the player has 7 attack, then you're going to do about 13 damage or so. And that's been pretty helpful for understanding the like net change is really the major thing I'm looking at here, as well as looking at like if the enemy has 10 attack with an ability that has a power of 15, the player has this much defense, how much damage are they going to be taking, and how much does 1 point of defense really change the amount of damage that the player is taking from an enemy of this with these attack values. And like these have helped me understand how to get to a damage formula that ideally ends around 9,999 with the player capping out at 255 stats. But well, assuming that the enemy has 255 defense and a power from the player's ability of 200, that's going to cap us out at close to 9,999. So these stat numbers I've been pretty happy with. But what I realized is these don't tell me the whole picture of like if the player's doing 10 damage and the enemy has 10 defense, I can kind of see what the net change is on an individual attack, but it's not telling me the number of attacks that we need to kill an enemy. So if we go back to the other sheet, the one I've been working on, chapter 1 sample, this is kind of broken down to be more chapter based. So I'm guessing that maybe a player wants to go from strength 7 at the beginning of the game up to strength 20, or not player wants to, but I would want the player as the designer to maybe gain about 13 points of strength, 14 points depending on how you count it. And over that course of time, assuming that they have an ability that does 10 power and an ability that does like 22, these are 2 different columns of damage that the player could be doing. Basically, I'm doing a little bit of math to figuring out how many times would the player need to hit the enemy in order to defeat them. The basic mini slime is pretty straightforward with only 30 health. You're gonna, from the base level of the game, be able to hit it 3 times and it'll die. And then by the time you've gained a couple points of strength, you could do 2 basic slashes to defeat that enemy as well. That's not super complicated and was fairly easy to figure out even without this chart. The thing that I'm finding this more helpful for is specifically for the bigger slime. And I've bumped the health up quite a bit so that they have a fair amount more health at 225. And I've realized that if the player has their attack do 8 damage, then it's going to take them like 30 hits to kill the enemy. However, if you stagger the enemy after 4 hits with a slash, which is the way it currently works, then I'm doing a little bit of formulas to figure out, like, okay, so I think that you're going to hit the enemy 4 times with this, so 8 times 4 is going to give us the first part of this equation, essentially, which is going to be our 32. And then I think that the player is going to be able to hit with the staggering, like, bash ability that does more damage 2 times. So this is going to be 33 times 2, basically, so 66. And if we add both of those 2 sets of numbers together, we get 98. So this tells me that with a 4 hits to stagger and then using our big attack twice, we'll do about 100 damage. And so if I have the enemy having 225 health, then I know that if I divide that max health by the amount of damage per a staggering kind of rotation, so to speak, that it'll take about 2.3 rotations, or another way to look at this is a bit of math to figure out that it'll be about 14 inputs. The player will have to hit 14 different attacks in order to kill the slime. I found that these numbers feel way better to me, and it's giving me a much clearer indication of, as the player gains points of strengths, they will slowly be able to go from being 2.3 rotations to somewhere down to a single rotation or 6 inputs. And that's feeling okay. This definitely is a bit slow. We might want to make the combat more flashy to kind of make this work, but in terms of creating a more interesting puzzle and showing a dynamic, this is working better. And when I started this kind of chart, what I realized was initially we were going from like 1 rotation to just 1 rotation. Like, you'd eventually get to the point where you could one-shot the enemy with a single slash attack, and it just was like way too powerful, way too quickly. And so these numbers that I've also changed the damage formula a little bit to kind of create this balancing, but this is all feeling better. Now, maybe that doesn't all make sense. That's fine. It doesn't have to. The point is that with our current damage numbers, it definitely feels like the enemies are much more tanky, and it takes a bunch more hits to take them out. But the flip side of that is that the enemy also can withstand the player gaining a few points of strength. So if we start here at this point, this is essentially after we've gotten to the first checkpoint, we've unlocked upgrading, and we are able to go in and kind of start the real tuning. Because at this point, you're past a lot of the tutorialization, and you're starting to be able to make purchases in here, buying some upgrades. This upgrade here is going to make it so that you can stagger an enemy in 3 hits instead of 4. And then at this point, we've got 1 more point of SP, so I can either choose between health or strength. And I have 3 health crystals, and I have 4 strength crystals. But I think for my purposes, I want to see what it feels like to have more health on this next run. And then same thing here, we're going to buy a health upgrade here in the bash tree, and we only have 1 point, or we only have 1 point for this one. So we've bought skill points for 2 of our abilities. We've kind of used up all of the skill points that we've earned, and we're able to go down here and take the checkpoint to the Northern Trail, which is our second location, and we can try exploring and feeling what it's like to kind of go north or south from this point. So we have this first slime, and we can see that if we just like use slash now, because of that stagger increase, we can now stagger in 3 hits, and then we can bash twice, and that does about 50% of its health. A little hard to tell with this, like, with the way that our health bars are built. I am noticing that them being so small is definitely more of a problem, because we did 10 damage there, but because these are so small, we don't even see that 10 damage as even a pixel. So there are some issues with the retuning, that some of the UI no longer reads as well, but it definitely feels like I can take out this enemy in a reasonable amount of attacks and get that input, or get that feeling that I'm getting stronger, without completely annihilating the enemies too quickly. So we've taken a bit of damage, we've got some crystals, we've taken out a couple of those enemies, found a loot drop, and now I'm going to head south, and I'm going to see how that feels. And this is kind of where we're at. This is what I've been trying to, honestly feel good enough to, like, to shake the cold enough in order to be able to like continue moving forward. And I do think this is the next piece I need to solve, is just like, is this working? We've reworked the damage numbers. Things are feeling a little bit more slow in terms of how quickly the player progresses and how easy the enemies become. But is it still, have we gone too far the other way? And like, I need to test, is kind of like, I think where we're at. Because once we figure out this damage tuning, I think the game is in a potentially a good enough spot that we could start doing some testing. Okay, so we're able to get into that small cul-de-sac, get the extra item pickup, but we can't quite make it all the way south on that run. And it definitely was easier to be able to go down before and get all the way to the next item pickup. Now we've got 3 points of slash from those upgrades, so we can get a point in power. So now we can increase the power, which does change things a little bit. So now this has a power of 12, and we can see that that does increase our damage by about 2 points across the board. A little higher the further our strength value gets. So at this point we're at strength value 8. So we have a strength of 8. So that's going to bring us from 13 damage to 16. If we scroll down to the big slime, at this point it should be about 12 inputs for us to take out an enemy, and it'll be basically 2 rotations. So there's like, these drops are feeling reasonable. Another way to think about it is it should in theory be about 2 less inputs. So it'll go from about 14 A, B presses to about 12. And I think that the player won't necessarily think about those types of solution or those types of numbers, but it'll just feel like you're getting stronger, is the hope. But for me, I just needed a more analytical way of seeing this information. So we can buy a couple more of these, and then we get stuck at these like crit nodes, and we can't make any more progress, and we don't have a sword crystal in order to be able to unlock our next skill yet. So our only option is to go down into here. I think these skill trees could get a rebalance. Again, I think it's probably fine for the time being. We don't have to go too crazy. Looks like we've got 3 points here, so I'm gonna head down because I want more health, because I feel like the issue isn't that we're running out of time, it's that we're not surviving enough. So I want to see, just with the damage numbers, or with the tuning values we have right now, how big of a difference does that extra run make? Like, just getting an extra 6 nodes of stats. Can I get all the way south? I also don't need to go up in here anymore. I didn't fully explore it. I would assume a player would fully explore this, but we got the one item I know that exists in this cul-de-sac, so we can kind of get back this way, or dead end, or whatever you want to think about it as. So we've got 150 health now, opposed to, I think we were at 75 or 100 last time, so we're definitely a little bit more tanky, as well as a few more points of defense, so the enemy should be doing a little bit less damage. Get that stagger. Yeah, doing 8 damage now. And we can pretty reasonably take this enemy out before they get a chance to do more than 1 attack. Which is still crazy considering the amount of attacks we need to do to defeat them. Now here is something I was trying, where I was trying to have these guys overlap a little bit more. And then making it so that the player can kind of use this 1 tile gap as like a way of engaging only 1 enemy at the time. I think I'd like to make it so that the AI is a little smarter, so it can try and get here without just sitting away being confused. But yeah, using some good positioning, I'm able to take these enemies out. And I'm still taking damage. Like, it's not like I'm taking no damage here. I'm definitely pretty weakened, but that fight was doable. And now at this point, we would come into here, talk to Yuta, and then find out about our quest to find the flowers. And we're running low on time, simply also increasing the amount of health that enemies have. Oh, right, we need to go north first. Right, okay, so the bonus we got for going south first was we got Shoot, which is going to be helpful versus the bat enemies that we find in the northern section of the forest. But we have to go north now in order to be able to... get Yuta to talk to us. And then once we've gone north and gotten Yuta to talk to us, Yuta will send us over here to pick up some of these medical herbs for Usato. Okay. I want to make another save here. Let's make a permanent save location over file number 3. After that run, we've unlocked Shoot, but we didn't use it at all. So we don't have any skill points for it. We did get another couple points in Sword. We did get a single crit node, so we can go down here. We can buy a HP one, and then we're out of SP on this one. And then here, we can use a defense node, and then we can either go left or right. I think I want to go left for the HP, so I'm going to buy this one. And then we're out of SP again. So now, again, gaining a couple more points, getting a couple more points of stats, or sorry, unlocking a few more nodes for a couple more points of stats. And now this time I can go north, and I will kind of need to test going north first opposed to going to south first to see how that feels as well. But I think these damage numbers are working. Now, the difference with going north is we have less of the big slimes and more of these bat enemies. And the bat enemies have the behavior of running away and trying to find friends. I took that behavior away from the big slimes because it felt better to be on these ones. Now, can I take this one out with a bash? I can. I think I want to make the bats more resistant to physical attacks and make them more weak to the magic, to make there be a benefit to going south to get Shoot first. But I also don't want the bats to be completely impossible to defeat if you haven't gotten Shoot. Okay, let's crank this up. No, we should check this in here. We've got the boar. How many rows do we need for this? How many rows? Looks about 15. So if we add another 15 in here, just maximize this. Add 15 more rows, copy this data, paste this down. We'll rename this to bat. Okay, and then we've got a couple of hard-coded values in here, I think. So this is 61, so this needs to become 77. And this one needs to be 77. Okay, so then what are these? This is B10. That's some of our globals, so those are fine. Those can stay. What else? In here, this is looking at B45. Oh, have I already made... Oh, there's already another section here for like a really high health boar. I think I can just repurpose that. I had forgotten I had set that up. So this can be the bat. Is this... If I give this like a defense of like 20, does this modify? It does. And if I change the health to be something more reasonable, like say 200, these numbers still look off to me. Yeah, so this is needing to be 61. And then populate that down through here. This is all correct. Oh, and then these numbers should be the same. Yeah, this section here was originally being used to test like what would a mid-game kind of experience feel like. Okay, so let's assume that the bat has like, say, 25 physical defense. How much of an impact does that make? Wearing a helmet on YouTube chat. I don't know what you're referring to. Yeah, I don't know what your messages mean. Okay, so if we have a slime at 15, that's kind of like the base defense for like this reasonable enemy. This is doing 33. If we crank the defense up to say 25, it really isn't making that big of a difference at the low end. We can see that if we like minimize the bore for now, just hide these rows, that it does make more of an impact later on. So we might need to give the bat a pretty high physical defense to really make much of an impact on it at all. Like if we give it like 45 defense, like something crazy, even that doesn't really change things too much. It will as we get into like later parts of the game with more numbers, but I added like a base amount of damage to the formula so that everything does a base amount of at least 10. And I think because of that, the defense value just has very little impact on the initial numbers. We can see like in the net change, there is a really big difference here because like it goes from like a 20-point increase to like a 7-point increase later in the game. But early on, if we want to make the bat super tanky versus physical hits, changing the defense stat really isn't going to make that big of a difference. So we can crank it up to something that's pretty absurd, but probably fine, which is like 30. And then leave its physical or its magic defense still at something like 15. Let's go into Unity. Let's change its physical defense to like 30. We'll give its magic defense like 15. We'll give it like 175 health. Maybe just a flat 200. And then I'm going to change something else to make it so it's a little bit more resistant to slash staggering. So slash will have less of an impact on staggering the bats. But we have it so that the shoot attack, which is our high, will have 3 times more multiplier. So it is going to be very effective. How much damage does this enemy do? It's currently doing a basic attack, which is this one here, which has a default power value of 5. Okay, so it's doing a low amount of damage. I'm going to tweak that up to like 10. So it's doing not quite a full attack of like a slime's red attack, but it is doing a little bit more than kind of the basic hit. And then, again, these numbers don't need to be perfect. I really just want to get this to a point where I feel like it's reasonable for me to hand this to someone and know that it's not going to take them like, say, 40 runs of like grinding to be able to get past this stuff. And again, if the slime ends up being a cakewalk, no, what am I trying to say? I think the big thing here is I just want to make the bat feel a little more different from the slime, even if their numbers and the amount of damage you do to them is similar. I just want to make it so that the bat feels different, at least to stagger. Sure. Yeah, let's go that way. Because right now I can just kind of one-shot the bat with a single bash. And that just feels weird. Yeah, so staggering is way more difficult versus this enemy. And it's going to go run away as soon as its stagger bar reaches a certain point. Now, at this stage, it's better to hit the small slime just to kind of get it out of the equation so that we don't have two of them hitting us right away. So we can slash our way through. Yeah, and we've halved the amount of damage we're doing with Bash. So, okay, this feels way tankier. So despite what my spreadsheet was saying, this is working. Can still stagger it. If we've half the amount of stagger damage from slash, I guess that means we're taking 6 hits. It's not feeling that bad though. Everything feels snappy enough that it's okay. Versus this bat now, if we use shoot though, we can basically, with 2 shoots, stagger it. Right. I also have a bug that I need to resolve, which is that shoot doesn't let me change targets. Right now it just picks one enemy in range and I can't switch between them. So I'd like to be able to shoot the bat in front of me, but it's still choosing the one that's like off camera over here. Also, why is it not visible? Where is it? Oh, did we also break it? Interesting. Yeah, it's invisible. So something also broke with the bat and the fog system. Okay, now 2 bats feel like, even though it's only doing 9 damage, it still feels tanky enough that they're kind of a problem. Oh, there's also a problem with the item pickups. I went to the left and it picked up the wrong one. Let's take a look in here. Do these have the same ID associated with them? Yeah, I bet you they do. Bat _1. Bat _2. And then I'm going to guess this is also slime 1. That's fine. It can stay as slime 1. I can rename it. I don't know. Okay, so that's fine. So these enemies feel a little tanky, but again, not too bad. Do I want to try and solve whatever's going on with shoot? I probably should. All right, let's go to boot. I really want to focus on this tuning pass because I do think that like just getting the skill trees feeling good, getting combat feeling feeling like it's in a good spot. These are the problems that are really preventing me from being able to test. Sorry, I think I can use the autosave, unless I just overrode it. No. Perfect. I think the tuning is the big blocker that's like preventing us from being able to put the game out into a demo form. Yeah, so at this stage... Oh, I can switch between them. Oh, that's an even more interesting problem. So why can I switch between it here? But here I can't. Okay, so the system is set up to work, but it's not receiving the input correctly here. Okay, let's go look. This might be quick. This might be quick. The fact that it was working at all means that this is likely just a small input issue of some kind. We are looking for the combat ability select screen. This one here. So we should be in here. Oh no, we're not. We're in the targeting select screen. Process inputs. Let's start the debugger. And let's see what happens when we hit a button. It might also be directional that we care about. We'll try this one as well. So if I hit right here, this is hitting the directional inputs. It's getting the value. It's getting a directional vector. Okay, so it has saved the ability range for shoot. And there is a concept of coming in here to change the direction, but it is not directional orientated the way that this ability range works. So it is just returning a list of units, and that list of units is empty. How does this normally get populated? Interesting. Yeah, unit count has to be greater than 0. Super interesting. Okay, so essentially what's happening is we're coming into here, and because this is not a direction oriented ability, it is choosing not to get a selection of units. But we know, at least for a second there, this all did work. Interesting. If I hit shoot, does this get a list of units? It does. It gets both units. And it generates a menu. And then it should be updating some sort of data-driven menu with that list of units. Unit selector menu. Okay, yeah, it comes in here, and as long as it can target that unit, which it thinks it can for both, it creates 2 different buttons. What is this data refresh, update? Is this an overridden value? It is not. Okay, so I'm populating a menu with both of the units, but I'm not seeing a way in which changing the inputs switches between those. This is weird. There's a couple of competing systems all overlapping, and it's just trying to figure out like what is happening. So I'm seeing this. This is definitely the setup for the units that we should be able to select between. This inherits from a menu screen. And this menu does get automatically updated in the background, and its selections do get updated as well. Is that M menu used anywhere in here? No, we're using this data-driven menu instead. It has been a while since I've looked at some of this stuff. I'm guessing that we should be hitting this on select call. We are. I think that this system has not been used in so long that something fundamentally has broken. Yeah, so we have two unit selector buttons that get generated, and those buttons should be linked to each other. They have a select listener. Automatic is the current setup. What is this unit selector button doing? I see. It's wrapping the bounding sprite. So if we look at this in the scene, is there in 2D mode just a sprite that exists around these? If I go to like... Yeah, there are two different buttons. But it's set up to be automatic, and there should be a visualization. I think the width and height are wrong on these, though. If we pause the game, can we modify the width and height of these buttons? We can. And if we make them a bit smaller, we can see the visualization for the navigation between these actually turns on correctly. Yeah, so if these were positioned correctly, then the automatic navigation between them would probably work. Yeah, but as soon as I unpause, it gets automatically updated to these values. What's modifying this? Is this the selector data? Or was that... No, that was above this selector button. This is getting the bounds of the sprite and trying to build the size to be about the same. This looks like some really old code that we have refined and fixed up in other iterations. Okay, so the reason it worked once was that these two were far enough apart that the giant buttons were getting their automatic, like, navigation figured out. But in this situation where they're right next to each other, which is going to happen quite frequently when the player ends up being surrounded by the enemies, they'll all kind of stack. The buttons are so large they're overlapping, and Unity's automatic navigation system can't figure out how to switch between them because they're basically occupying the same space, or close to. So we need to fix this selector logic to make a more tightly encased button so that the navigation works. The other option would be to not use automatic and instead manually hook up the navigation between these buttons, but that's a bit of a more difficult problem to solve. So then the question becomes, why is this way out of bounds? Why does it think that it's so much larger than it actually should be? It's using the combat canvas, which is going to be this one, which is 640 by 360, so it has the right canvas that it's grabbing. Can I actually see what's going on in here? So this is getting the sprite renderers. This is for the void eye. It's getting its bounds. Yeah, these are just way too big. It's finding the center point. And then does a little bit of math to find the min and max position. And then minusing those, it finds a size delta of 82 and 42. This camera.main seems wrong to me. We do this elsewhere. What's a more modern example if we search through the solution? Yeah, we have these utilities to do this now. We are doing camera.main in a lot of them. Compute canvas position. Is that close to what we're trying to do? Yeah, okay. A lot of these are getting single points. Can we see anywhere else where we're doing, like this one here, does this get used in the same way anywhere? If we go to here, no, this is just getting out a single point. It's not computing the size. Is there anywhere else where we're doing this size delta in the project? Kind of here, but not really. None of this is setting the size delta. This is doing something else more specific. The dialog box does it, but again, it's doing a bit of more, like, almost hard codingness to it. Yeah, I feel like this is just an old setup that is just very outdated code. Unlockable characters with the hydration. Appreciate it. Yeah, this whole setup feels like a period of time when I was trying to just like get Unity to do the work for me by generating these invisible buttons and trying to map it to the size of the character on the screen. And just, this is likely to break. Like, it finds weird ways to break just in the way that, like, the camera changes or adding new cameras, it can cause weird issues. But most of the utility functions have been mostly put through their paces enough that I trust these. It's just hard to figure out exactly how to swap these. Is there a good example of me setting up the navigation myself? Because this is a menu, right? Yeah. And this is a menu list. Okay. But we navigate through menus. Like if I go into the pause menu, in here, and I go up and down through these menu items, where do these exist? This is in UI, front end, screens, pause menu, options. This is a vertical menu list, but this doesn't rely on automatic, I don't think. I hook up these buttons to navigate between each other explicitly, and I do that through some sort of logic when I build these. Is it this boot menu? Populate navigation. Where does this get called? As part of its init. Okay, and how does populate navigation work again? It just goes through the button list. Yeah, and it just connects them. Okay, so then if we just go to this thing, which is the here, if we come to this unit selector menu. This is a data-driven menu component. And a menu component contains I think I can just call a init after this and it'll hook up the navigation for us. Because this will call menu component init, which in turn will populate it for us. Is that how we do it in other situations? It's complicated. But yeah, it looks like a lot of our menus do just call init. I'd like to find one that's a more generated though, like, because pause is mostly pre-built. Can I find a menu list that is generated in a similar way to how we're generating these unit selectors? Save load. This one doesn't call init. Then is it normally handled by the screen? This one doesn't call init either. Oh. I see. I see. Okay. Okay. So if we go look back at this setup inside of here for the screen targeting. Okay, so got it. I see what's happening. So inside of this targeting screen, it is a type of screen known as a menu screen, and it has this data-driven menu, which is the data-driven screen component, which is going to get populated with buttons based off of this data type essentially. But inside of the menu screen, it has the concept of it being a menu component. So there are two aspects to a menu. There is both the actual menu component, and there is also like the actual data-driven menu, which it can be unique and modified so that different menus can take different types of data. And the base level menu screen, when you drag in the menu component in here, will initialize it on screen opening for us. So this should be getting the init call should be getting hit, which in turn should be calling populate, but this one doesn't do that. None of them do, because it's not necessary to override it. Because it's not necessary to override it, you can still just call it. Okay, so this call should be getting hit, and it should be populating the navigation. And this is a menu list. It's... All right, I think I see what's happening. Let's go to the front end. So I think this one is set up to be any form of navigation. Front end. So if we go into combat, look at our screens, go to the target screen, go to its components, look at this unit selector menu. It is set up to be horizontal, vertical, or automatic. It has everything. It should not. It should only be vertical. In fact, we can also just do this correctly and modify this inside of the prefab. And again, I think that because this targeting setup is so old, it just had old settings, is my guess. Because if we go look at something else, like save, I'm going to guess that this one is just set to vertical only. Yeah. And the fact that it had all 3 selected implies to me for sure that it was just old data. That it had been updated at some point. And because we normally don't use targeting abilities like shoot that often anymore, we mostly do directional based attacks. So you're just changing which facing the player has, which then changes the ability's targeting area. We haven't run into this bug. But because I'm trying to bring shoot online as a new ability to make it more useful versus specifically these bat enemies, yeah, okay, I see. So now it is working when I go up and down, but it is not working left or right. Which is probably why it was set up to be automatic. Maybe it was a conscious choice because I want you to be able to hit any button and let it just be whatever it wanted, or let Unity handle it. But because of the UI scaling just kind of being broken, it's just going to be easier for this demo. Yeah, to pick one. I'm going to do horizontal because I feel like that's probably going to feel better in most situations, but it is going to feel a little weird that, like, if you want to switch between targets, you always have to go left-right, even if the enemies are above or below each other. There's probably a better long-term fix we can do for this, but this will at least let you be able to choose targets with shoot, opposed to potentially being locked into only one, which is just worse functionality. Cool, bug fixed. That took a bit of time, but again, I think that this is necessary for the demo. We need to have it so you can switch targets with shoot. This bat is blind, which is fair. Yeah, so here I have to go left, right. I can't go up, down, which would feel more natural, but I think this is fine. It's at least responsive in some way. Okay. And so these bats feel annoying, but at least they don't feel identical to the slimes. You're going to go try and find a friend, but you can't. Interesting. And then he gave up. Okay. That, you know what? That's working for me. That is not perfect. Does seem a little weird that he couldn't find this one. I could see from his behavior he was trying to search for another enemy, but not finding one. So I'm not sure why they're not able to navigate into this alcove. Yeah, we can just barely take this enemy out as well. Oh, is this not... Was this only... Oh, weird. Why was I not able to interact with that? It's fine. There's going to be bugs. I'm fine with shipping this demo with a couple of bugs because it's mostly friends and family, but I just want to get something out. I want to be able to send things and have a general vibe on stuff opposed to just sitting on it forever. And we ran out of time. Interesting. Can we get to that location without running out of time? Also, what upgrades can we get now that we've unlocked shoot? Ooh, mace has a lot. We are leveling up very quickly with the mace. I feel like the amount of experience we need to level up is maybe still incorrect in some way. Like it feels like we're gaining too quickly. We don't have any resist. We don't have any stagger. We also might want to add some items to guarantee some magic and resist nodes. We also might want to turn down the tuning of how many strength crystals you get, because I feel like the loot drops, maybe I'm just getting unlucky with it, but we're just getting maybe a few too many strength, so we might want to change the loot tables a little bit here. Yeah, and we're almost done with mace at this point. I don't want the limiting factor to be crystals. So it does feel weird that we have so many skill points and we can't spend them. Yeah, I might want to tweak down the amount of experience you gain each time you use an ability so that the player isn't gaining so many skill points so quickly. Oh, we never went down here. It's another stagger crystal. Yeah, we could definitely change some of this around to give more magic crystals, potentially. Okay. I'm liking this. I think that seems pretty reasonable. We're low on time again, but we should have enough to be able to start this conversation. Okay, and then that conversation gets us to the point where we can... Oh, what did I do? Oh, interesting. I attacked... I was spamming A, and I guess I've... No error messages, but I have gotten us into a lock state, and I can't even debug end the run. Can I advance time debug? No. No, we are just broken. Okay. Autosaves are helpful in this situation. Now the question is, was that because of the spamming issue, or is there something fundamentally wrong with that cutscene? I'm not sold on this balancing. I feel like we're close. Yeah, no, I was spamming. Can I hit A here? Yeah, the fact that I can attack is super weird there. You shouldn't be allowed to attack an NPC. Okay, so... what is our current state? I should have finished that dialogue before debug ending, but I just want to look at where the skill tree is at. So we've got, honestly, more skill points than we need. We're low on crystals to use on that one. And we're kind of almost done all of these skill trees as well. Huh. Okay. Here's what I'm thinking about. At this stage, we're basically done with that section of the map. We have gone north. We would have talked to Takashi, who gives us the kind of code words to be able to talk to Yuta, who's going to tell us about collecting the flowers. We would collect the flowers. We'd bring them back up, hand in the healing tonic, and then we'd get the shield, which would be our final, like, kind of fourth ability in our base level. And then we would go do a run where we go to the first checkpoint and then try and fight the boar now that we have defend, which is going to make that combat possible. So we've still got potentially another run south, collecting all the items, getting back to Yuta, handing in the the tonic, assuming that we do everything perfectly. It's at least 2 more runs to go south and then to go north again, but likely it's probably 2 runs south and then another run north. And then we start on the actual boar fight. And we're already kind of maxed out on these. So I think I need to reduce how quickly you level up. Let's figure out what's going on with that. Let's go do another run and let's hit an enemy and see how much experience we're getting and how much experience is needed for the next experience level. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with the damage numbers I'm doing per se. What are our stats at, actually? We're at 11 strength, 12 defense. I want you to eventually be around 20 in both of those by the time you're done chapter 1. So we could be giving out more strength stats, but we can also give out some of those stats in the defend skill as well if we really need another spot to place them. Let's take a look at the experience formula though. Experience. Ability spec. Which one of these? There's 2 different ones. This is the JRPG version. We want the infinite retries version. So in here, this is the required experience per level. Where is this being used? Here as part of the tally. So let's look at what's going on inside of the tally. I'm going to guess that because we have tuned things such that it now takes way more rotations to kill an enemy, aka more inputs, that means that you're just slashing and bashing way more than I was having you do before, which in turn means that you're gaining way more experience in a run than originally I had set up. Things are just tankier, and you get experience every time you use the ability. Yeah, so we're gaining 8 here, and our current experience is 16. So we're going to go up to 24, and we currently need 75 to level. And why is it 75? If we go into here, I'm sorry. This is slash. Oh. There's a bug with this formula. Why does skill points used equal 0? When we purchase something, we should go up with this number. Are we not saving skill points used? We are not. Okay. That's why we're leveling up too fast. So if I had have done all this in one run without saving and loading, we would have seen a different result. Interesting. And I'm going to guess that skill points used is not a saved value. Maybe there's a better way to track this information so that we didn't have two different values for this. But skill points is the amount that we have. Skill points used is the amount we've spent, and those together tell us the total amount of skill points the player has ever earned. Again, maybe there's, instead of tracking used, we should just keep track of every skill point you gain and have a total level. But I'm going to just save the information for now. Same thing here. Okay, and that should make it so that we're saving out the information and loading the information back in. And if that was true, because we've gained like... what, like 20 nodes or something? This should be 20 plus 1 times 15 for the amount of experience needed. Yeah, so we should have way less skill points than what we do. So this isn't a good representative run. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So... okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's possible that the tuning is actually okay. That the amount of experience we're gaining would be better if we hadn't run into that bug. And potentially going north and south, we wouldn't have gathered so many skill points so quickly. I'd have to do another full run to kind of get an idea of it. That's probably... honestly, I need to go back to the very beginning and restart from the moment I get slash in order to really test this properly. Because otherwise, none of the skill points I bought on my first few runs are even going to count properly. Okay. This is a solvable problem. So if I hit one of these enemies with slash 1, 2, that's getting me over the threshold of 15 and gaining our first skill point. 3, 4, and if I kept slashing, 5, 6, that gets us over the next threshold. So we just need to figure out the total number of slashes that you will take Is it always 8? Is that just like a hard-coded value I've decided on? I think it is. Yeah, it's coming in per skill. So it's 8 for 4 slashes, and I think it's like 15 for a bash. Yeah. So bash levels up twice as fast as slash, but that's because we expect bash to be used way less. So I know that it's probably going to take you 4 slashes, eventually 3, to stagger an enemy. you can just stop now, please. Thank you. So it's going, you're going to take 4 slashes and 2 bashes to kill a slime, approximately. In most situations, fighting a slime, you're going to gain, on average, 32 experience when you're doing 4 staggers, and 30 experience. So they're each going for bash. So slash about 32, bash about 30, right? And then the amount of experience you need to gain a level up is 15, then 30, then 45, then 60, 75, etc., etc. So you have to do 2 sets of these, because you have to do, this is 1 rotation, you'll get this experience. So on 2 rotations, which is what you'll be doing early on to kill a slime, you'll be getting about 64 and 60. So you will, killing 1 slime, we need a new sheet. So on average, they're both gaining about 30 experience per 1 rotation. And enemies take 2 rotations on average starting off, or maybe on minimum it's 2 rotations. So it's 60, so it's going to be this number times this number will be the amount of experience we get killing 1 defeated enemy. We're going to get about 60 experience. And then the amount of experience that a skill point costs us per that skill tree, I said the required experience was just simply the number of skilled points times 15 is all we're doing. So, and this isn't some crazy formula, this is just something that felt right at the time. So it's going to be, let's say we'll start with 1 skill point, 1 plus this value, formula 1 plus this value multiplied by 15. And we start here. Okay, and then for 1 defeated enemy, we're saying we gain 60. So I want to know 15 divided by this number. Sorry, this cell divided by this cell, but we do $sign so it doesn't move. We autofill. And then this becomes the sum of is equal to this plus the next. This plus the current value. But we want this to be cumulative, so we want to sum everything up to that point. So this is the sum of this value. What's the formula I'm looking for here? I want to do this value. I feel like it's sum, but it's like sum of C5 to C6. What are you autofilling with? C6 to C7? No, this should be still C5. And then this should be C5. Are you smart enough to figure out what I'm trying to do? No, you're not. Okay. So we're going to leave C5 to be a locked value like that, I think. Yeah, and then that's scaling up the way I want. Okay, so this is going to sum everything in this section. Cool. So then this is telling me the number of enemies I must defeat to gain this skill point, essentially. So early on, yes, I need to defeat a quarter of an enemy to gain 1 skill point. These numbers are off by 1. Okay, regardless, this is going to be... Shoot, what am I saying? This is how much experience or how many enemies I'll need to defeat to gain the first level, which is a quarter of an enemy. And then I need to defeat half an enemy to get this one. So after I've defeated 1.5 enemies, number of skill points, number of enemies, number of defeated enemies to gain skill point. And then this is actually 1 skill point, 2 skill points, all offset by 1. So if I want to gain 24 skill points, I need to defeat 75 enemies. Total. But in order to get like the first few nodes, like to get up to 8, I only need 9. Okay. This explains why this feels good early on, but it's probably, this formula isn't going to work long term. It's going to take a very long time. Well, is it though? Like again, this is the total number. The total number of defeated enemies is going to be a lot. But to get from 21 to getting another node is going to be close to 6 enemies defeated. Yeah, that's a number of enemies, but that's not, that's like one run. That's not that crazy. Okay, how many enemies do we have per run right now? If we currently go south, well, in the very, okay, let's map out our little area. So we start in the I6 area, then we go to, what is it? J6? We go to J6, then we go down to J7, J8, J5, J4. Okay, so then we're basically going either of these directions. Currently, there is no enemy in I-8, and there is no enemies in K-8. So it's really just these ones. This one has one mini slime in it. One mini slime. This one currently has 3 slimes, I believe. This one has one mini slime, one normal slime. This room has one mini slime, one bat. This one has 2 bats and 1 slime. So if we go south, we can actually skip the ones in J6. We don't have to fight those. We would run into 1 mini slime and 3 slimes. So just going south, we're going to end up fighting 3 regular guys, which are going to be the 60, and then 1 mini slime is like 2 hits, which is going to be minuscule. Like we can count it, but it's like less than a defeat. So it's even less than these numbers that we're saying. So this is close to something like, honestly, something like 3.1 if we go south. If we go north, we're going to run into a mini slime, which is still like 1 or 2 slashes, which is not very much. A bat, which is about 1 rotation, so it's more closer to 30, but you're going to be using shoot on it more. Yeah, it's hard. Like, this is a good representation, assuming you were fighting only slimes and only ever doing the slash 3 times, bash 2 times. But it's not really super representative when we get into like the bat fights. I'm curious about the damage numbers here on the Void Bat. So we hit this once, twice. Yeah, it takes like 6 hits to get it to stagger. This is with no upgrades. Like, I have no stat upgrades at this point. Yeah, so it basically takes 2 rotations, I think. It's just the rotations are longer. Because slash is less effective. But if we use shoot, it's way more effective. Can we actually do more damage with shoot because of the defense changes? That's 30. Yeah, no, we do more with... Okay, so versus bats, it's better to just keep shooting, which I think I'm fine with. Like, it's just like, that's your magic attack. You just do that versus the bats. But if we gain, let's debug gain a couple of points of strength. Like so. Does that still hold true? So we staggered this enemy, 18 damage, or 19, 28, and then now bash starts to out damage it. But you're always going to get a better effect staggering by using the bow than you will slashing. Yeah, but again, if I get a couple of points of magic, because right now our strength is 10, our magic is... Oh, it's 11. We start with higher magic. I forgot about that. But even still, if we get a couple more points of magic, it'll start to outscale. So you're going to have similar damage numbers with bash versus shoot versus the bats. But either way, it's like 6 slashes. And 2 bashes in 2 rotations. So it's like way more slash experience to kill a bat if you're not using shoot. But if you're using shoot, it's 2 shoots, and then potentially you can just keep shooting. So it like you're going to gain a bunch of experience with shoot versus the bats. So these 3 bats, you're likely going to end up fighting when you go this way, and shoot will gain somewhere in the range of 3 defeats, basically similar numbers. So in a run, assuming we go south, we're going to level up our melee abilities by 3 attacks in a south run. So we'll get somewhere in the range of, well, let's assume we get here with maybe like 2 skill points or something. We'll end up getting somewhere to 5 or 6 skill points after a southern run. And then when we start going north, assuming we go south first, we get shoot. Then when we go north, we're going to get a bunch of skill points using shoot on the bat. When the player figures that out, like maybe we hint at it in some way, but if the player's just experimenting, they'll realize shoot is better as well. And then they'll gain a bunch of skill points, but they won't get many more for slash or shoot. Okay. So rough estimations, I think it's likely that if we had the save file hooked up correctly, and we had done all of the runs, we probably would end up with 6 or 7 upgrades. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or this one could be our 7th. But either way, that's about half the nodes in this grid. How many do we have total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 if we count the extra upgrade skill. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we have more here, and then 18 if we count the extra upgrade skill. So it's 16 here, and we don't have an upgrade skill in this grid yet. Okay. So we're going to quickly upgrade up to, like, say here, or in some regards get to this stage. And then to finish filling out the rest of the grid, it's going to slow down drastically. Yeah, by the time we get to 11 skill points, which is like 4 or 5 left in the grid at that point, it's going to start taking full runs to get a single skill point. Unlockable characters with the hydration, appreciate. Okay. I think this is working then. I could have also in that time just played through the game again, but I kind of wanted to just get my head wrapped around the numbers. So I'm going to say that things are okay. I could probably kind of send the demo off to get played with these amounts. We might want to add an extra enemy or 2 in some of these spots, like potentially I-8 or K-8 could use an extra slime. But every slime we add also increases the amount of time it takes, because now combat just takes longer because every skill costs seconds, basically. We could also increase the amount of time the player has. Like if we're running into problems with the player running out of time too quickly, the, like, whatever I'm giving you for time is arbitrary. I think it's like 5 units, 5 minutes or 5 hours. I'm still not sure what I want to refer to it as. I can't test it here easily, but whatever my units are, we could just arbitrarily give you more. Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't want to tweak anything. I think I just need to do another play test or another run through. I need to play through it again. Set here. What is this one at? Yeah, at this point I've already bought upgrades. Yeah, so, and those upgrades won't be tracked properly for experience gaining in the save load. So yeah, I need to start over on my saves again, and I need to start a fresh, well, mostly fresh run from this point and play through. And I think we need to basically just play through to the point where we finish this side quest with the healing tonics, and then test a run where however many skill points and nodes I end up getting, I need to then do a run where we go from here with all of our upgrades, shoot, defend, slash, bash, all of that upgraded, and now we come back here and we need to figure out what the stats are on the boar at that point. And we need to do enemy placements for these zones. Right now this has some slimes wandering around, but maybe we want to add an extra bat in here. And then this has a single boar fight, which is fine, but maybe it could use a bat or something over here. And then this room is empty and has nothing and definitely could use some combat and some item placements. Maybe this is where we put some magic nodes or something. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just need to do another run through, get to a point where I've finished the side quest over here, come back and get to the point where we're saving this adventure, and then figure out what this run looks like. Once we've gotten all the way through here, this is where the chapter kind of ends at that point. Yeah, once we get here, the chapter's basically over, and there's like a boss fight that I want to figure out how to do here, but honestly, I think the boss fight could just be like for this demo, be like, and that's the end of chapter 1, insert boss fight here, eventually developer note, end of demo. Like, I just want to get this on Steam and be able to send people codes and be like, here, play through this. And if the boss fight stuff isn't figured out, then yeah, that's fine. Once we've figured out, yeah, it's really just 2 sections. The tutorial's fine, I'm happy with it. It's just figuring out this north-south, which I actually think the balancing is kind of leaning okay. I like the curve. I could maybe see a couple of extra stat points for strength or defense in the skill grids. Maybe some extra nodes. I feel like these crit nodes aren't doing anything. Like just changing one of these to be another strength node could be handy. Like this just isn't useful or helpful and is confusing for me to try and communicate to the player what this is even doing in terms of numbers. Yeah, I had called out that I wanted to build the skill trees, enemy placements, enemy behaviors I'm happy with at this point. I actually think I'm willing to cross that off. Because like we have the bats doing their go find a friend and the big slimes are just switching between like little attacks and big attacks occasionally. I think that's fine for early in the game. So I'm saying we're okay on that front. It's just this kind of progression balancing. I'm even going to move treasure placement to be almost like a subcategory of progression balancing, because I think the treasure chests are going to help figure out like how much you gain. And we essentially need to do this for North-South and for the Boar Run, those 2 sections of Chapter 1. This is actually already done too. It could be better, but I have a version. And then I have an ambience add audio for foes. We have audio sound effects for them that we need to add in as well. Okay, this is not that bad. We can accomplish this. I don't think it can be done today, but I'm definitely getting a better idea of where we're at and what needs to be done. So I think we're going to stop here. We'll come back at 6. I'm actually feeling fairly good. We're going to swing back in about 2.5 hours. We're going to come back off camera in between streams. I am going to play through and get to a save point where we've essentially done the North-South section, and have a save file where I've, however many nodes we have unlocked, figure that out. And then I will come back with us starting at this point on G7 and then heading north and figuring out enemy placement and item placements in these rooms as you move your way towards the final cutscene section that happens inside of I-4. And that'll be Chapter 1 complete? Yeah, if we can just get a save file where I think the balancing is fine here. I'm liking the way the bats fighting is feeling. I'm liking the skill tree balancing for the most part. Maybe we add an extra stat node or off camera in between streams as well. And then in here, when we come back, it's really just going north. The part that I'm kind of glossing over, though, is the boar fight, because we're going to need to bump up the boar stats so that it is very difficult, if not impossible, to defeat early. But as soon as you get defend in order to block and parry its attacks, then it becomes a much more doable fight, but still difficult and requiring multiple rotations in which you need to parry correctly, I think, which is not that difficult. It's just a timing game. Or a turn-based timing game, so it's much more simpler to track the parries, but you'll need to do that correctly in order to win this fight, I think. And then once I've got this fight with the boar figured out, it'll just be adding a couple more boar fights up through this section. And you might need to do this run a couple of times to get strong enough and gain enough stat points to eventually be able to get to this point where you finish these 4 or 5 room section and then get to the final cutscenes for the chapter. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. We're gonna come back, like I said, a little over 2 hours from now, and we'll figure out the boar tuning and this final run, and then I think combat will be good, and then I'll just have some bug fixes and some audio stuff I'll want to do, and then I can probably submit the demo soon, and then probably do some playtests with friends and family to make sure everything's working correctly, and then maybe do some codes on the Discord shortly after that. I say shortly, it's probably a couple weeks out, but I think we're getting there. I think we're really close. I think we're really close to having something that's like a vertical slice chapter 1 complete. For now, though, this will be Tully signing out. Later, folks.